A little girl walked up to one of the most powerful women in America and said, "I think you knew my mommy." That woman, worth over $1 billion, never seen crying in public, never seen losing control of anything, dropped to her knees on a sidewalk in downtown Chicago and sobbed like a child herself. Nobody in that crowd understood what was happening. But by the time the truth came out, every single person who heard this story wished they had been there to see it. This is not a simple story. It is about a missing child, a buried secret, and two lives that were pulled apart 20 years ago and stitched back together by something that has no logical explanation. Some people call it fate. Some call it coincidence. After you hear everything, you can decide for yourself what to call it. Victoria Marsh did not become a billionaire by accident. She grew up in a two-bedroom apartment in Gary, Indiana, with a mother who worked double shifts at a diner and a father who was more of a roomer than a person. By the time she was 16, she was doing the grocery shopping, paying the electric bill, and making sure her younger brother got to school on time. She was sharp in a way that made teachers uncomfortable. Not just book smart, street smart, people smart, the kind of smart that reads a room in 3 seconds and knows exactly what everyone in it needs. She got a full scholarship to Northwestern, graduated top of her class, started her first company at 26, a logistics software firm that she built out of a one-room office with 2 employees and a laptop that overheated if you ran more than 4 tabs. By 40, Victoria Marsh was the CEO of Marsh Enterprises, a company with offices in 9 cities and contracts with some of the biggest retailers in the country. Forbes had her photo. Morning shows wanted her on their couch. Business schools were writing case studies about her. From the outside, she had everything. But there is always something the outside cannot see. The thing nobody knew about. Victoria, the thing she had buried. So deep she sometimes went entire weeks without thinking about it. Was a girl named Claire. 20 years ago, when Victoria was 22 and barely surviving her first year after college, she had a best friend. Her name was Claire Henderson. They had met freshman year, bonded over bad dining hall food and worse professors, and became the kind of friends who finish each other's sentences and show up at 2 a.m. without being called. Claire was everything Victoria was not. Soft where Victoria was hard. Patient where Victoria was restless. The kind of person who remembered your birthday, your mother's name, and the exact way you liked your coffee. They were inseparable for 4 years. And then, 3 months after graduation, Claire disappeared. Not disappeared like a mystery. Disappeared like life sometimes makes people disappear. A fight. A misunderstanding that grew teeth. Words said in anger that neither of them knew how to take back. Victoria had been chasing a job opportunity in Seattle. Claire had wanted her to stay in Chicago. They argued. Victoria left. Claire stopped returning her calls. Victoria tried for 8 months. Letters, emails, showing up at Claire's apartment once, only to find a new tenant who had never heard of anyone named Claire Henderson. She was just gone. Victoria told herself it was Claire's choice. She told herself she had done everything she could. She told herself this less and less over the years until she mostly stopped telling herself anything at all. She buried it. She built her company. She moved forward. That is what strong people do, right? They move forward. The day everything changed was an ordinary Thursday. Victoria was walking from a lunch meeting back to her office on Michigan Avenue. 2 blocks, she always walked it. Said it was the only fresh air she got. Her assistant was talking in her earpiece about a 4 o'clock call. She was half listening, half thinking about a contract that needed reviewing. Then she almost walked into a little girl. The child was standing completely still in the middle of the sidewalk, which is something children do that adults never do. Just stop. Right in the flow of everyone moving. Like the world is supposed to arrange itself around them. She was maybe 6 or 7. Brown hair and 2 uneven pigtails. A purple backpack that was slightly too big for her body. And she was looking around, with the specific expression of a child who is trying very hard not to cry and failing. Victoria's assistant was still talking. Victoria pulled out the earpiece. "Hey," she said, crouching down. "Are you lost?" The girl looked at her. Big gray eyes. Victoria felt something strange move through her chest, like a piano key being pressed very softly. "I can't find my grandma," the girl said. "We were right here, and then I looked at a dog, and she was gone." "Okay, that's okay. What's your grandma's name?" "Grandma Ruth." "And what's your name?" The girl hesitated, the way children are taught to hesitate with strangers. Then she said, Ellie. Okay, Ellie. I'm Victoria. I'm not going anywhere, all right? We're going to find Grandma Ruth together. She called her assistant, had her contact the building security nearby, and stayed crouched on that sidewalk with Ellie, asking her questions to keep her calm. What grade are you in? What's your favorite subject? Do you have a dog at home? Ellie said she had a cat named Biscuit. Victoria laughed, a real laugh, not the conference room kind. Grandma Ruth was found 11 minutes later, frantic and tearful, at the corner of the block. She had turned 30 seconds to check a street sign, and Ellie had drifted with the crowd. The reunion was fast and loud and involved a lot of hugging. Victoria stood up, brushed off her coat, and started to turn away. That is when Ellie said it. Wait. The little girl was looking at her with those gray eyes. I think you knew my mommy. Victoria turned back slowly. What? She has a picture. In her room. Of her and a lady who looks like you. Ellie tilted her head. Her name is Claire. The world did not slow down in that moment. It stopped. Completely stopped. Victoria felt the blood leave her face. She felt her knees go soft. She felt 20 years of buried grief come up through the concrete and hit her all at once. And there was nothing, no billion-dollar company, no Forbes cover, no amount of forward motion that could hold it back. She sat down on the sidewalk, right there on Michigan Avenue, in her $1,200 coat, surrounded by people who had no idea what was happening. And she cried. Not polite crying. Not the kind you hide behind sunglasses. The kind that comes from somewhere so deep you forgot it was there. The kind that means something has finally broken open that needed to break open. For a very long time. Grandma Ruth knelt beside her, put a hand on her shoulder. You're Victoria, the old woman said quietly. It wasn't a question. Victoria looked up. Claire talked about you, Ruth said. For years. She talked about you. Claire Henderson was alive. She was living in Evanston, 45 minutes from where Victoria had built her entire empire. And they had never once crossed paths in 20 years. After the fight, after Victoria left for Seattle, Claire had gone through something Victoria never knew about. A diagnosis, anxiety so severe it had made Claire withdraw from almost everyone she knew. Not just Victoria. Almost everyone. She had spent 2 years barely leaving her apartment. She had rebuilt slowly, quietly, without social media, without the kinds of networks that would have made her findable. She had gotten better. She had made a life. She had a daughter, Ellie, obviously, whose father had not stayed, but whose grandmother, Ruth, had stepped in like a second foundation under a house that needed one. And she still had that photo. The one from junior year, both of them laughing at something off camera. Claire's arm around Victoria's shoulder. On her dresser. For 20 years. Ruth had recognized Victoria's face the moment she crouched down to help Ellie. She had said nothing. She had watched. And when Ellie spoke, children always say the thing adults are too careful to say. Ruth had simply let it happen. Because she knew Claire needed this. Had needed it for 20 years. Victoria called Claire that evening. She almost didn't. She sat in her office for 2 hours after getting home. Phone in her hand. Putting it down, picking it up. Her assistant had left. The building was quiet. Just Victoria and a number that Ruth had written on the back of a business card. What do you even say? After 20 years? After all that silence? She called. It rang 4 times. Victoria had already decided what to say to the voicemail. Something calm. Something that gave Claire the choice to respond or not. Claire picked up. Neither of them spoke for about 5 full seconds. Then Claire said, I wondered if this day would ever come. And Victoria said, I'm sorry. I should have stayed. That was enough. That was all it needed to be. They talked for 3 hours that night. Not about the years they had missed. That was too big. Too heavy for one phone call. They talked like they used to talk. About small things. About Ellie's obsession with frogs. About Victoria's disastrous attempts at cooking. About the dining hall. Pasta that had somehow been both overcooked and crunchy at the same time. They laughed. Actually laughed. 3 weeks later, Victoria flew Claire and Ellie and Grandma Ruth to a weekend at a lake house she owned in Michigan. Just the 4 of them. No assistants, no calls, no agendas. On the last morning, sitting on the dock watching Ellie throw bread at ducks who were clearly not impressed. Victoria told Claire about the company. About the hard years. About the moments she had wanted to quit and hadn't. About the nights she had sat alone in offices wondering if any of it actually meant something. Claire listened the way she had always listened, fully, without interrupting, without checking her phone. Then she said, "You built something real, Vic, but I always knew you were going to." That was never the question. What was the question? Victoria asked. Claire was quiet for a moment. Whether you were going to let yourself be happy while you did it. Victoria didn't answer. She didn't need to. The fact that she was sitting on a dock in Michigan, laughing at a child throwing bread at unimpressed ducks, probably said everything. Here is the part of this story that gets me every single time. Ellie had no idea what she had done. She had just done what children do. She saw a connection and she said it out loud. Because children have not yet learned to be afraid of the truth. She did not know that one sentence was going to reunite two women who had been missing each other for 20 years. She did not know that her grandmother had recognized Victoria and made a quiet choice. She did not know any of the history. She just said what she saw. And sometimes, that is exactly enough. There is a study from Harvard that tracked thousands of people over 80 years to find out what actually makes people happy. Not money, not fame, not achievement. The single biggest factor in a long, happy life was the quality of your relationships. The people who stayed connected lived longer, felt better, and reported more meaning in their lives than anyone else. The researchers called it the most important finding of the entire study. Victoria Marsh had everything the world told her she needed. But the thing that finally made her feel whole was a friend she had lost and a little girl who had the courage to say 4 words on a sidewalk. Some doors do not open with money. They open with honesty, with a child's voice, with 20 years of a photo on a dresser and a woman who never stopped hoping. Some things are worth waiting for. And some people, the real ones, the ones who show up at 2 a.m., the ones who keep your photo for 20 years, those people are worth every hard thing you went through to find your way back to them. Don't let the people who matter become the secrets you bury. Because life has a way of bringing the truth to the surface, usually through a 7-year-old in a purple backpack who cannot keep quiet. And thank God for that.